Greetings and welcome back. I'm the Angrynator and welcome back to another episode of Is It Worth It? Because, YouTube. Today we're going to look at something rather interesting. Today we're going to look at Karate Kid, the animated series.
Yeah, you heard right. Karate Kid, the animated series. It was created back in 1989 as a Saturday morning cartoon show, but only got enough for 13 episodes.
And given the fact that a lot of shit from back then got more in one season, that's pretty bad.
It was created by Deke Entertainment as well as Saban Entertainment, probably best known for the Power Rangers series.
So a company who translates Super Sentai now creates a show about translating an 80s classic into a cartoon. What could go wrong? Well, apart from the obvious dick in the room, let's find out.
As always, we're going to look at the first 5 episodes and base them upon the 4 categories, this time being story, character originality and action, since this has to be an action show.
Well, without further ado, let's look at the story.
Okay, this is rather simple. Mr. Miyagi targeted the Japanese girl from the 3rd movie.
Oh, sorry. Taki Tamurai is indeed made specifically for the show, even though I believe there should be plenty of characters to choose from. But no, Neo-Japanese chick it is.
Well, anyway, Mr. Miyagi-Taki as well as Daniel Russo, who's played by Joey Dadio, mostly known for his voice in Extreme Ghostbusters as well as Denver the Last Dinosaur.
Just so you know, Mr. Miyagi isn't voiced by the original actor either, and this is probably due to the really low budget this show might have had.
Okay, our 3 heroes travels the world in order to find a shrine which was stolen from a temple in Okinawa. Which is odd, since you would believe the Karate Kid animated series to be a decent tournament fighter show. Maybe in space, I don't know, but they went with the magical treasure hunt instead. You heard right, the shrine possesses magical powers that basically puts the Infinity Glove to shame, since this artifact can grant the holder any wish, whether it be shape-shifting or power boost. Well, the first episode surrounds just that. Our heroes travel to the Amazon jungle, I believe, where they stumble upon a primitive warrior-themed tribe.
It was the late 80s, people. Let it pass.
Who got a dark ruler who chased away the rightful heir to the throne, or Hot. They don't explain too much. He's a wimp who doesn't want to fight, but as the natives say, he possesses the magical powers of the ancient guardian beast. This of course being the shrine that our heroes is in search of, so they strike a deal. Daniel tries to train the boy in karate, while they also try to use up the throne. Everything turns out okay in the end, since the leader, who by now used the shrine to shapeshift into a leopard, is done for and peace and order is restored. Well, almost that is. The shrine escapes our heroes and is on its way to the next episode. So in many regards, this show is rather similar to that of the Mummy animated series, where they travel the world for some artifact as well. Second episode, The Greatest Victory. Yeah, the titles makes little sense, honestly. It takes place in Hong Kong, where Miyagi has to meet an old friend who believes he can help find the shrine. But there so happens to be a gangster group calling themselves the Dragons who is taking siege of the neighborhood. And of course, like true Daniel style, he wants to beat them up. But Miyagi and Taki believes in a non-violent solution. But Miyagi's old friend and his children believe that fighting is the only option they have left, and when they get a hold of the shrine, they use it to triple their training as well as becoming inhumanly strong. Well, also while they talk about the right approach, this scene happens.
Will pay for protection. If they don't pay, they take their valuables.
The man sits down and talks while the girls... I'm actually quite unsure they... fights while dancing? Let's just see that again.
Take their valuables. Take their valuables.
Yeah, I'm certain. The man sits down and talks business while the girl stands for the entertainment. Talk about being modern and progressive, huh?
Well, the leader of the dragons captures the statue and uses it for mind control. They get it back only for it to leave their hands once again, leading into the next episode. Also, this sort of PSA ending at the end of every episode.
This is crack.
Yeah, had this show been renewed for a second season, they would without a doubt have included some PSAs.
Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
On to the next one. The Homecoming. This time it takes place in Jersey, where Daniel Russo grew up before Karate Kid 1. Here we meet his old friend and love interest, as well as the bully and rival named Brick.
I seriously don't remember her name, but Brick? Seriously, how could you forget that?
Anyway, it seems that their search for the shrine is disrupted by Brick, who believes that whatever Daniel searches for has to be worth a lot of cash. So they manages to snag the shrine in front of Daniel, and Brick decides to use this opportunity to sell it to some sort of mobster.
Yeah, unlimited power at your disposal. Better sell it for a quick buck.
So they return to the Pier Carnival, where they have the final battle on the roller coaster.
And as you might have guessed, the brawl results in the shrine being lifted away with some balloons. Oh fuck! Why did it have to be balloons? Well, might as well fade to black until it's gone.
The next episode takes place in Paris, and sadly this was way before the miraculous Ladybug started her patrol in the city, so nothing worth of interest here. Well, for whatever reason, our trio decides to tail this guy who apparently loves fancy desserts and crummy apartments.
And all we know is that he lives in a dumpy attic apartment and eats fancy desserts.
Yeah, it's a whole wisecrack thing Miyagi says about rabbits and how to catch them.
Rabbit no fox on tail. Look for new rabbit hole.
Well, Miyagi was right and wrong, since the crook manages to get away with the shrine, so after this failure our trio decides to split up. Miyagi and Taki decides to look for the best place in town to get parfait de chocolat.
Pavé au chocolat.
Garçon, pavé au chocolat.
Yeah, more about this how to catch a rabbit stuff. You better be listening, Thought. You hear? You could learn a thing or two.
Meanwhile they do that, Daniel decides to look up a psychic who of course is a scam, but also a real psychic anyway. It ends up with the psychic stealing the shrine, since he foresaw lots of riches with it. They play a little game of tailing this and tailing that until they end up close to the Eiffel Tower, but of course Daniel foresaw in a crystal ball made by the shrine that Miyagi would be run over by a red truck there, so he tries to not find the shrine but instead protect Mr. Miyagi.
Phew. What a low.
So this leads up to the last episode I saw, taking place in a British film studio, which honestly can be summed up rather easy. Famous movie star moves in on Taki while making fun of Daniel, but it appears that Daniel is way better at stunts than the movie star, therefore he has to coach him, and later actually more or less replaces him, the movie star not being able to play King Arthur anymore, then has to cope with being the Black Knight, then captures Taki, who's apparently playing King Arthur's castle maiden. Even though an Asian would never get that job in those times, but I don't believe that historical accuracy is what they aim for. So they have a battle upon the Bridge of London, where the Black Knight got the power from the shrine beamed into the sword, and they manage to defeat him while the shrine yet again leaves their grasps.
So that was the stories. Now on to the characters.
Daniel Russo is sort of like the movies. He's bold, rash, and really can't cope with the whole inner peace thing, but tries his best to follow his master's ways. The voice actor does a decent job at recreating the actor from the movie, but you can hear the difference. There's no doubt that Daniel is portrayed as the main lead in this movie, doing most of the action. Not much else to say than that. Honestly, he's rather bland and sort of uninteresting. The character's lines and action really doesn't help you feel much for him at all when it goes bad, or anything else for that matter. Then we got Mr. Miyagi, who honestly feels like a powerhouse when he finally decides to do something. Wrestling alligators, beating multiple enemies and such. He's also the comedic relief in this movie, doing most of the wisecracks. He's also the one who seems to know what to do and when to do it, but leaves it up to Daniel for the most part to execute it. Out of all the characters, he's probably the one who is the most fleshed out by a small margin. Then we got Taki Tamurai, the female in the show. Yeah, like most shows from the 80s, the females tend to be just there to look at. She likes ballet, dancing, as well as photographing stuff.
So in all honesty, she contributes with almost nothing.
She had this ability in Paris where she hid with the dancers, only moments later to be revealed to sit next to the guy they tail.
Which is pretty impressive, while also being completely pointless.
Why did she hide with the dancers when she then just ruins everything by being in plain sight moments later with her regular clothes on again? Was it just so they could draw her in a skimpier outfit instead of that horrid flower patterned jumpsuit that most 12-year-olds would say, I'm not a kid, I'm not wearing that horrid thing? Well, Taki in all fairness is bland as paper. She has zero personality and contributes zero to the overall story. She's just there to check the female supporter on the list of things to add in the shows.
Now let's talk about the action, since you might already have guessed where this is going.
Despite it being an 80s Saturday morning cartoon, there's little to no action in it, even for the time. One car chase and a few brawling scenes here and there. Not really what would be classified as an action show back then. It certainly doesn't help that Miyagi constantly stops Daniel from fighting. With his alternative, sure, that is Miyagi and that is what a karate master would do, but it really hinders a lot of action scenes from happening. True, action for the sake of action is not good either, but I believe they could have put in more action while still keeping it relevant. Seriously, it is Karate Kid. A few brawls here and there shouldn't be impossible. But when the action finally comes around, it is sort of hindered by the animation's limitations. It is stiff, it is clunky, but the art style sort of makes up for it. I would rather have amazing artwork with some sort of bad animation than horrible artwork with fluent animation.
So that was the action. How about originality?
Well, surprisingly enough, it is sort of original while being a complete ripoff. Let me explain, it is original as in this isn't something you would have expected from Karate Kid. As mentioned before, a tournament fighter series would be what you would have expected. And Dragon Ball sort of shows you that it can be entertaining to make. But they went with the magical treasure hunt scenario instead, making it rather original in the world of Karate Kid. But on the other side, lots of shows had this concept in the 80s, almost overused if anything. And in this regard, it is nowhere near an original concept. They hunt for the same artifact throughout the show, kind of reminding me of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, with the amount of episodes and layout of the story. The characters are nothing new, nor do they do a great job recreating the movie's character design, so is it worth it?
Well, the easiest way to answer that is... if you really love Karate Kid and just can't get enough of any of the movies, then sure, this might be right for you. Otherwise, try with something better. I'm the Angrynator, terminating bad movies for your entertainment.